Okay. I would like to call to order the advisory committee for the Cannon Beach Elementary School Rejuvenation Project to order. And first, we are going to ask for public comment, even though it's not listed on the agenda. You don't want to say anything?
Oh, I was kidding.
Pardon me?
It was like a joke.
Okay. Deb, did you want to say something?
Oh,
Not me, sorry.
oh,
Wait, no, don't need any white noise. So I put a blue packet on your thing because I had done a lot of research on all of this. You know, I buzzed through it fast, like the fireworks and the food tax, and got a long ways. So this will be important information for you to look at. Let me just tell you, I should have brought a packet for you first, but you have something. I have Nordic Northwest. I had an interview with her and she gave the stats on what the same size as the school we're going to do and how they run it and how they pay for it and what the head cost is. And it's a really nice place. Okay, comparable, very comparable.
Thank you.
What do they say in real estate? Comparable. Then I did a thing on, that was the one that says Nordic Northwest on top. That's really important for you guys to look at because it answers all the questions from somebody who's done it before. I have a thing here from the tribes. It's called the Main Tribal Museums in the Northwest with regular visiting hours and significant exhibit space. These are just things for you to look at. That's from the tribes.
Which page is this?
That's the one that says the main tribal museums in Northwest with regular visits.
Okay, sorry.
Eddie, it's one of the other stapled groups further.
Yeah, I'm just, okay, it was my third one. All right.
On Nordic Northwest, it's important to know what it costs them to run theirs every month and how they do it. It's going to be really important for you to look at because that's what you're going to be facing. Costs to run it every month, about $15,000. But they have a restaurant in there that pays for rent. Something to think about. Okay, so the main tribal museum in the Northwest, that's just information for you. And then I did a lot of research and called several other like facilities. And if you see the cultural heritage centers check out, these are all ones that you could find out what they're doing to make it happen. Okay, they have the same thing that we're headed toward. So I'm always thinking, why reinvent the wheel if they already have done it? Also, I just put a whole bunch of things of what the school could be used for. That's your job. But I had some thoughts on it over time. I also didn't put in here Skamania Lodge, which I've done a lot of business with Skamania Lodge. They do a lot of conferences up there, and that would be a good generator of money. So I could call them. I'm your assistant if you need help. So I can call it. I know them all. I know a lot of people, so I could call them and find out their stats of what it costs to run that place and how they're doing it. And it's a beautiful facility, hotel though. And lastly, I'm working with somebody in town called Uli Pardini, and he is a fundraiser writes grants for all his whole career. Very successful for the American Red Cross. I worked at the Red Cross, so I know he raised a lot of money for them. And we just started brainstorming on possible grants. And he said, the way you can do it is if you're not a 501c, you can have the Cannon Beach History Museum sponsor you to get grants.
Okay, thank you so much for everything.
Yeah, I wanted to hand it off.
And you are our assistant, so.
Okay.
Guess that was fun.
I like research. So.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so first on the agenda, we have a welcome, and my first welcoming remarks are going to be that I've asked Gary to chair this committee, if that's okay with everyone else. Give me a little break and.
That's a welcome.
Welcome. Was everyone in agreement? Okay with that? Okay. Go ahead.
Okay. So on the agenda, we've got, first of all, welcome to all of you and thank you for agreeing to participate in this. I know you've all got some great ideas about use and management, and I think we got the right team here to get it done. So kind of looking forward to getting through this process. So we are going to review Resolution 23-09 quickly. I had some comments about what we're here to do, but this pretty much says it. Did everyone review that?
I don't, where did that?
Okay, it's in the packet, and I'll just go ahead and read it. It reasonably brief. Says, whereas the city of Cannon Beach is in the process of restoring and re-envisioning the former elementary school into a tourism facility, and whereas the Cannon Beach City Council desires to involve the citizens in the process, and whereas the Cannon Beach City Council desires to have an independent citizen group research how other entities operate and maintain similarly sized facilities, and whereas the Cannon Beach City Council desires to appoint a 7-member advisory committee to assist researching the use and operational budget and management of how other entities operate and maintain facilities similar to the Cannon Beach Elementary School rejuvenation project. This advisory committee will report its findings and suggestions to the city council. And after our work is done, we will be disbanded. So that's it in a nutshell. That our job here is to discuss use and management. I hope we can be laser focused on those topics and not get sidetracked with other things. I also wanted to point out tourist facility and talk about the legal term for tourist facility. I know some of you, maybe all of you, are aware of this. But under state law ORS 320.350, it says that the facility must have the substantial purpose of supporting tourism or accommodating tourist activities. I did find it, first of all, I would hope that we exceed those expectations. I think we can. I did find it interesting as I was reviewing ORS 320.350 definitions. A tourist is defined as a person who, for business, pleasure, recreation, or participation in events related to the arts, heritage, or culture, travels from, and I'll paraphrase, more than 50 miles away or includes an overnight stay. So, I mean, to me, I read that, it's like, wow, that sounds like kind of what we're working on here. The only thing I would add is maybe ecology to that list of things that Cannon Beach represents.
And if I could add one thing, we have a deadline to be ready to present to council September 1. Okay. Or thereabouts. Okay.
I was hoping we could do this in 2, maybe 3 meetings, and I hope we can do them promptly and like I said, be laser focused on it. I think our recommendations need to be realistic about the site's biggest challenge, parking. Solving the parking is not part of our purview, but I think in considering use, that certainly needs to be something that we consider. So again, it's not in our mission to discuss funding. So thank you, Deb, but it's another conversation down the line. Scope of the design, the actual design, although what we decide here may actually alter the design as it can be, as is might be reasonable at this stage of the process. I was really hoping we could do this and do one meeting on use and one meeting on management. And if necessary, come back for a final, make recommendations. But I would love it if we could talk about use tonight and see where we're at and see if we're aligned enough that we can have some recommendations kind of ready to go. So I would like to start just hearing from everybody. Yes.
I just wanted to welcome, I saw that Dick, I thought we should
Thank you.
recognize that Dick is on the call and welcome. Glad to
Hi,
have.
everybody.
Hi, Dick.
And
I'm
yes,
sorry you can't see me, but my computer says it doesn't recognize a camera on itself. So, oh, well.
So Dick will not be a voting member of the committee, but I would like to include him in all of these discussions. Kind of equal time. So thank you for that, Andrew. Yeah, I wanted to start just by seeing where everybody's at. I'd like to hear, give us your public comment, your 2 or 3 minutes of what you think the best use of this facility is. Let's not get into a discussion of it yet. Let's just see where everybody's at. And when we'll see where we're at, we can move it forward. Does that sound fair?
Yep, yeah.
All right. Would anybody like to start?
I would first like to ask Bruce a question, because I sent you city request that we have a legal explanation on use, determining about the city. Did you see that?
You mean in terms of free speech and all of that? Yeah, I saw that.
Let me just qualify what I'm concerned about first. In the situation that we had with the parade, this is where I learned about it, but I've also heard about it in several other instances at the conference. Is that the city is managing and operating a public facility. There can be no delineation of use. That's discrimination. Concerns for discrimination in the legal matter. If we wind up, and this would be this group's decision, I guess, to advise that we go towards a 501c3, lease the building to an operating unit of some kind, then they have a different legal description. That's my understanding. I just wanted to ask her to chime in on this before we got too deep into it.
Just so I understand that, you mean like if neo-Nazis wanted to hold a rally and it was city around, they would be entitled to use the space. That's what you're saying.
Yeah, that's a good example. I do think that's a management question. And so I'd like to consider that for a second meeting. So maybe we have some time to find out about concerns like that. Do we need a layer to separate us from having to welcome the neo-Nazi group?
And it might be
Or whatever it is, whatever might offend citizens. I think that's one of the concerns when we get to management, that whatever our management structure looks like, we should have that answer.
Sam, I'm sorry, I did see that. I didn't act on it. I'll have a report for this group at the next meeting. And that was my bad. I apologize.
Well, you started talking, Sam. Do you want to talk about what you think? It might be good because I see this as we've got a primary function of this space, and then we've got some secondary function, maybe not those specific tourism related functions. So it might be good to kind of talk about what you see as the primary use of the facility.
It's a really complex challenge what I've done is tried to look at it as very layered as far as what is the space. We have 9 spaces that literally could be rented or used individually or in concert somehow. So there's a huge array of working it out, what somebody would want, depending on what they brought in. You could rent the classrooms, you could rent a classroom, rent the lobby, you could rent just the kitchen if it was something else. You've got the 3 outdoor sites, the plaza, the story circle, the garden area. All of those could be individualized. Or again, it's a full facility. So there's a lot of potential about how the space can be used. The variety of possibilities literally is endless as far as the size of space. The gym obviously is the one probably primary use. But then we also run into the issue of it being 2 types of uses, the athletic capability as well as the event space. So all of that kind of needs to be judged, I guess. I know of the big church up in Seaside is a good example. That actually is a basketball court also. They play tennis in there. So it's interesting. It can be done very easily. It's a lot of logistics more than anything else. Let's probably get into more details. My biggest concern is still the internal workings. There is some challenges with how certain things could happen. And I could get into specific scenarios when we start talking about details, but that's my concern. Always has been. So I guess that's where I'm at.
I mean, what I heard you say is rentals. Do you see this as being a space that gets rented?
As a space, that would be how you would use it. If somebody wanted to have a birthday party in one of the classrooms, you rent it to them. Now, we might want to look at our rate schedules, fees, and how we work that up. So there's a difference between the tourist level of renting and a community membership kind of thing. That's something we have to work out. But I think that's the best way to sort it out. So actually, I see three levels. One is the rental for use, standard rate, corporate, birthdays, whatever. Then we have a community use. So you got the get lit. It's a community event. You give them a rate of some difference. Then you also got internal use. So we decided at some point to put on a fundraiser specific to the site. That's on us or on whoever the management is to run their own event. Well, it's just like Tullabonta Hall, literally. Rent it to people, you use it for stuff. But it is.
I will jump in with my suggestion for primary use. The primary use should be honoring the tribal history of the site. I mean, you know, if I had the wherewithal to just say, and the tribe had the capacity to just run it themselves, you know, that would be ideal. I know that's not the world we're living in, but I think that trumps everything else. And some of that can be done without, you know, not necessarily like operating a museum that is open during business hours, but in the, you know, around the site as been talked about by the architects and planning. But that primary I have, and then when I think about other secondary uses, I think it's important that we not duplicate things we have in town. Like, it's not going to be a better place to see a show than the Coaster Theater. It's not going to be cheaper to have a meeting there for a community group than it is at Tollivana Hall. And there's, you know, and there's many uses of the chamber building as well. And a lot of the, you know, and the chamber is, you know, built for a community purpose. It's just intimate enough. It's beautiful. There's, you know, but I guess which is a way of saying like there are, you know, the uses to me are the scale when we need something big enough indoors. And you know, I would say another, you know, duplication of, at least in the summertime, the band shell is a great, and that, you know, and that is well used. It's comfortable. There's parking. So, you know, like we don't need a second place for outdoor concerts.
But what a great place to have as an alternative for indoor.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, that's,
Yeah.
yeah,
Which is what we used
it's,
to do. when
it's a
it was
winter
at
time.
school.
Yeah, no.
Right.
Dry space.
Yeah.
Very good, Andrew.
Are you pal? I finished, sorry. Go into my name.
Betty,
Okay. I'm gonna second what Andrew's saying. I really feel like the design that exists right now is over the top amazing. And it really honors the native vision, the native presence in the space. It's also the beginning of our estuary, I mean, our ECFR, and it's connected to Haystack Rock. So it's just a prime place to have environmental education. And city has a mandate to educate for the ECFR, which we haven't done that goal yet. And HRAP is looking for an indoor space. And I think if we do it for birthdays and weddings and things like that, we're going to water down the potential for this historic heritage tourism spot where the garden itself, it's going to be like going to a Japanese garden in Japan. It is a prime example of mythology and survival. So I feel like the way we're moving is, especially with the tribal influence, we're well on our way to creating an amazing heritage tourist event place where we could teach environmental education, we could teach tribal, I mean, things like natural dyes, traditional cooking, wood carving, things that would enhance what the tribes did when they lived here. And then before the tribes came, we had nature, you know, and so to me, they all go hand in hand. So I'd just really love to see it as a heritage tourist center.
Just to piggyback on that. Let's keep in mind what the Nakus was. It was a
Yeah.
kind of a stop along the way, a kind of a welcoming, you know, and that it can do that. I think that could be a guiding principle, really.
I think it would draw a lot of people around the world. I mean, it just, and I think we could get money from lots of places if we are backing the indigenous people. That there's a rise in wanting to understand the stories that we have covered up for years and years. And this would be a beautiful place. We could have art shows from tribes from all over the world. I just was in Arizona and went to the Arizona Indian Museum, and they had a Edward Curtis show, and people were flocking in, and we were paying like $25 to go look at the pictures. And it was the most beautiful building too. So you're seeing what we have here would be a beautiful building, a beautiful garden, a place where we could teach from forest to sea, all the ecosystems in balance. And we could also maybe get people to help us restore the beaver and restore the salmon and, you know, have work parties that, I don't know, I just see it as, I don't want to water it down. That's all I'm trying to say with a birthday party, which we could do at maybe
Maybe.
a total. Or a wedding, which they could do on the beach. I mean, plus there's that place right here that they can have their receptions right across the street here. So
Looks like there's one going on right now.
there you go. There you go. So I don't know.
Okay,
That's my biased opinion.
very good. Barb, you want to weigh in at this point? What would make this
Well,
with the
I
limitations?
really like what I've heard so far, because I think the key is for us to remember the culture of that place. But I also think we need to remember that it was a school once and it can be a school again. Just the students are a little older. But they could also be younger. And I don't want us to get into the party business. But I think that it can coexist in the quieter times of the year. But I would love to have our Christmas concerts back there with our schools. You know, and all of the traditions that Cannon Beach Elementary had. I think we can do some of those things again also.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Harry,
All right, thanks.
primary use,
Thank you. Yes.
secondary use, what?
Well, and I don't think we're having any, any hard conflicts. I think that there's a real, the title that, thank you, Deb. What a great chunk of material to start with. This is really, really lovely to
Lots
have
of
this.
homework.
Yeah, I have this in front of us. I appreciate that. The title that jumped out at me immediately was Nikus Discovery and Nature Center. Speaking to Gary's concern about parking, I think my vision primarily speaks to a tourist enhancement facility and community enhancement facility, not so much of a tourist draw. Doesn't seem that we need too much more tourist draw. So that what we're going to put this, and my vision would, my blue ribbon vision would be to have this open every day, to have it as a center that is available and staffed every day for people to enjoy, learn. Yes, special classes, yes, special events, yes, special, maybe closed for a private event from time to time. But I really see that as being something that is ultimately going to be funded to be able to be open 7 days a week. We might not be able to start that way, it might be the weekend only something, but I like the idea of having something in this center that is user-friendly and can be a very casual immersion into what Cannon Beach has to offer, but then we can back that up with more formal tutorials and classes and then I love the idea of the community center too, so that it is available for indoor events in the off season, which we do need for larger events. Obviously, I'm not against having from time to time rented private events because they're extremely lucrative. And carving out a possibility for those to happen, well managed, obviously, will I think show Cannon Beach that the two worlds can live together harmoniously. We're not going to be cutting off a nose to spite our face type of thing. We're going to be, having doing a strategy that would bring some very good hard dollars into our town in support of this cultural. And Nordic Center does it. I think part of our research going forward is to ask specific questions. What portion of your building is used for private rental? What portion of your building is used for community And how do their management dollars get spent on those types of things? So that's what I got so far.
Thank you. Us.
Good.
Thank you.
So I haven't heard anything that I disagreed with for sure. I came in thinking more about the definition of a tourist, the same one that you read that said that we needed to draw someone from 50 miles or further away in order to truly say that we're justifying using tourist dollars.
Do we have to draw them or do we just have to provide them with extra opportunity?
That's what I was hoping. I was hoping it could be.
Like it's value add.
So
Yeah.
we avoid the parking issue because we would say it's not appropriate to have your neo-Nazi event here because we don't have the parking to do that.
Oh, that's interesting.
I don't mean to jump on your, but I want to make that,
Right.
I would love to know.
We don't have the parking. We just don't have the facility to be able to accommodate you.
That's a question I've had. I think I brought up in meetings, like if we have an open gym and tourists are welcome to come, does that count? Is that working towards satisfying?
I don't want to get in a lot of back and forth here, but let me come back to the language of ORS 320.350. Must have the substantial purpose of supporting tourism or accommodating tourist activities.
Great.
So,
Yeah, so let me just, but one more comment, and I'll move on. The reason we can't pay for Midtown's new toilet facility with tourist dollars is because nobody comes to Cannon Beach to see a toilet facility. I think that rationale would ultimately apply to a gym that they could use if they were already here. I believe you're going to have to demonstrate people are coming. And so my thoughts were more about, you know, we talked about that there was a small venue conference that could be lured to Cannon Beach. I think it's really important that it maintains all of it espouses the tribal history to the extent that people who are trying to learn more about the Clatsop and the Halem people know this is a primary place to come to do that. If we chose to talk about the fact that Lewis and Clark, or at least one of the two of them was here, this would legitimately become part of the Lewis and Clark Trail, which is a huge and almost nationwide organization. To me, those are the things that are going to people more than 50 miles away, you know? And so to me, that's what I was focused on. I think it's great that we rent it out and use it locally. I think that's going to happen no matter what. I wasn't even really worried about that so much as what does it take to draw people? That's my point.
and that's a good question that I think we need to get to. Dick, do you want me to go or do you want to weigh in now?
I'll be happy to. I am excited about what I'm hearing. And, you know, to answer or respond to the comment about the Lewis and Clark, every fourth grader in the state studies Lewis and Clark. And, you know, it would be a draw. In addition to families going to Fort Clatsop, it would be pulling additional families down to Cannon Beach to, you know, experience those things with their kids like we all like to do. And it's true. Families travel the Lewis and Clark Trail from Montana all the way over to the coast, or from, you know, just the whole trail, which now has been extended to go to Monticello. So anyway, I have always seen this as a facility that was a cultural, I'd like to say cultural and discovery center. Because no matter what the culture, whether it's modern day Cannon Beach culture or the culture of it 100 or 200 years ago. There's all those stories that can be told through evening presentations or daytime presentations, reenactments. And I think no matter what the issues, I would see presentations done, whether they be large or small, you know, whether in the gym or in the classroom. And gosh, lost my train of thought. But I certainly see, I would hope that through architecture and through art exhibit, people would kind of learn something about the culture just through osmosis by being on the site, going through the site. But there would also be an opportunity for presentations about the culture. So, you know, I guess I'm reiterating what you all have said in one way or another. So I'm really in agreement with you all.
Thank you. You're all right.
Oh, thank
Uh,
Job done.
Okay, let's move on. Yeah, I see this facility as not a drive-in park facility. I see this as another downtown attraction. And so if someone's downtown, you know, there's this historic site and this ecologically important area that I think we can really build on. I think that within, so I kind of see this, since we're throwing out names, I kind of see this as the NACUS Cultural and Ecology Center. Call it the NACUS Center for short.
It's not just Nakus Village.
But I would think that within the center, there is self-guided interpretive things so that you'd learn not only about the culture, that historic site itself.
You mean indoors or outdoors?
Indoors. I'm speaking indoors now. You'd also learn about the Lewis and Clark story, but you'd also learn about the ecology of Cannon Beach and the varied ecosystems. It's right there. You know, we're right at the edge of our watershed, as Betty was pointing out. But we could talk about ecology of ocean beaches. We can talk about the ecology of the rainforest. We can talk about the ecology of wetlands. We can talk about wildlife. We can talk about marine life. We can talk about the geologic origins of this entire coastline and the sea stacks that those lava flows created. I just think that that is going to draw somebody downtown. Outside, I see we offer the same lessons. You know, we've already kind of got the nature trail there. I just see an interpretive trail that you can walk a quarter of a mile and you can learn about the historic site. You get the origin story of Thunderbird and how the village got there. You go to the water's edge and you learn about watershed. You go a little farther down the trail and you look across the creek to where Lewis and Clark camped. You walk a little farther and you learn about birds and sea life in the estuary. You get to the grove of spruce trees and you learn about the rainforest, and you loop around the story circle and learn about how that's the way history was passed on from generation to generation. And you loop around and maybe get that story about maybe there's another basalt pillar that tells you about the geologic history and Haystack Rock and our headlands. And you come around and it tells you the story about elk and provides a safe viewing distance. And all along the way, I think in all of this, we've got the opportunity for stewardship messaging, safety messaging. I think there are the secondary uses like we've talked about. I think if it could be a center like that, classrooms could be used hopefully for a lot of ecology, art, as Dick was talking about, the native cultural things. And I think it would be a fantastic place to have events that an organization would probably love to come and host an event with that there. And they need to learn about that stuff too.
Speaking, I'm not really understanding, so I'm speaking, I'm kind of off the top of my head, but I know that the tribes also have seasonal, like I think it's a salmon welcoming party. We could do that kind of event there. We could do potlatch, show, have a place where people come and give to other people. I mean, that's what the food bank's doing, but I mean, there's so many things events we could do that would relate to the place also.
And if we got to a center that was open daily, as Carrie is suggesting, that opens up the recreation. If someone wants to shoot hoops or play pickleball, they sign in and go.
I would personally like to, and if somebody's already done this, please jump up and say, we already did that. Look at asking some of these pointed questions. I love what Deb did with the likewise cultural center. Chehalem Mountain is one that I'm at all the time because of the viticulture, activities in the valley. But I'm thinking of the hotels here. So we already have hotels. We already have full hotels much of the time of the year. I'd like to spend some time talking with the hotel management and asking them what types of requests have they had for small conferences where they were not able to accommodate requests but we want a catered dinner for 100, in October. And where are we going to do that? So I would like to explore that because it would fulfill that tourist draw factor and would also be a lucrative cash infusion into the center. I think that there's lots of people in here that are really, really interested in going after the fleshing out of the ecology and the Native American history part of it. But I would like to concentrate on what the town needs that would be a really nice fit.
And I think there is a need for things like a facility that accounts for remote meetings.
Mm-hmm.
That's something that.
Now, is it, I don't want to, I took, when the hotel folks came here and kind of pushed back at, I mean, like maybe they had their own, financial reasons to do that. But the picture that they sketched was that it was not a good fit for business meetings. We could always go revisit that. But I want to step back. I love what you said, Gary, about the outdoor being like a passive tour, not needing to be staffed. And there's a part of me when I think about a static 9 to 5 museum when my eyes kind of glaze over, and it would be expensive to operate. There should be interpretive things inside for when you're having an event that there's more to be gleaned. But we have a museum.
Mm-hmm.
But
We have the history
we
center.
have, but it has nothing to do. I mean,
Well,
you know what I mean?
I
It's
don't,
like,
a little bit.
But.
But I mean, like, I think that's, I just think when we talk about, operations and management.
Yeah. And we'll get
You're
there.
gonna staff it up and it's gonna be open all the time. It's a much bigger ask.
One of the things that I grew up doing was because we camped all over the West Coast and down all the way into Baja, Mexico. But one of the things we did going to all the national parks is, I mean, this is a very family oriented town and things to do with kids in the evening time. We always went to the ranger slideshows, at the
Yes.
campground. I mean, that was a thing. Did you guys? I mean, that was a thing. And then you would come back and, do s'mores, so, but it was a draw in the evening. Again, that's a walking activity. Go down in the evening, you do a 7 o'clock slideshow in the gym, have an education, do nature, do, whatever. And that could be a high season activity for, once a week or twice a week.
Yeah, if there's an interpretive trail, I take it.
Right, yeah.
One of my favorite things in traveling is to follow the Rick Steves
Yeah.
self-guided walking tours. They're fantastic. And it really tells a story about a place or a culture, a historic site. So I do see after hours, special occasions, all of these facilities could host private events, retreats, meetings. There'd probably be a transportation plan required by whoever's putting on an event, including our community events. But certainly after hours and most of our off-season events, parking becomes less of an issue then.
Barb, what was it like when there was wintertime events in the gym parking wise? Well, how did that happen? How many people showed up? What was it like?
I just told the story the other day of when I was teaching at Broadway and it was Christmas concert night. I'd park my car on my way home from school and then walk down to the Christmas concert and drive home. So, I mean, parking was, Sam, you remember those days too, where,
Blacktop.
And how many people would show up to these things?
it packed.
200?
Yeah,
More than that.
yeah, because every mother and father of the children performing came, but the rest of the community came and you didn't miss a Christmas.
And I imagine we probably weren't as a city that as full. I mean, I guess,
Right, yeah.
I was just talking
It
about
was-
residual parking that is,
Right. It was full of
and
families, not.
and the conference center has grown and
Right.
around it
Yeah.
and other things.
Yeah.
Is it true that some of the hotels have shuttles?
They have cars.
Yeah, they have cars.
That they could
Or vans.
shuttle people, but also if we had, in the summer, I know we have a shuttle that goes around town. Could
If it
we have
can be
some?
staffed.
Yeah, that may have fit in the dust. But the Sunset Transport Empire is in dire straits right now. And the regular bus schedule is not even. I don't expect that to come back this summer, I guess.
This summer, no, but I mean, I think it's something that can happen.
But those things just grow organically. When you have a need, people are very happy to get in that business.
Right.
I mean, we didn't have any vineyard transportation or wine country tour when Tim and I bought the vineyard 20 years ago. There was nothing, and now it's a huge business. So, yeah.
Also, when the haystack program was going,
Mhm.
7 years that right?
Yeah.
That's when the
And
kids.
every weekend would have a concert in the gym during the summer, for the 2 months that it was working.
Yeah.
There was never a parking issue.
This was
and a lot of
the
people-
90s, the 80s.
It was, I think it was even in the 70s, mid-70s. It was fun though.
No,
I remember,
later than that.
Yeah.
It was 80s mostly.
Yeah.
was it 80s?
But their concerts were packed and it wasn't just local people. It was,
Yeah, that was a great thing.
Mhm.
Les, you got.
Well, I just had a couple of questions. I just thought one was kind of building on the hotels and I heard the same feedback that Andrew was referring to, that they don't really fit, but For some of the things that we might consider using this facility, there's going to have to be somebody in town, someplace to stay. I mean, so we're not going to be able to completely divorce ourselves from the hotels in town. I don't think,
We don't want to.
No,
you know, I mean,
no, we gotta work.
it's kind of hand in hand, so we
Right.
need to work with them.
Right.
The other question, which really doesn't probably belong to tonight's discussion, was the use, some of the uses probably need to be guided by how much funding does it need to raise for itself? I mean, we're kind of acting like we're going to be able to pay for it out of our pockets. And I'm not sure that that's true yet. You know, I think that we are probably going to have some amount of income
Well,
by the time this is all done to help.
it would seem to me, and I'm not speaking for or against this, but if the TLT is raised 1.5 or 2%, there's going to, you mentioned at the last meeting, there's going to be a gigantic pool of money that is very restricted and could probably fund the holy hell out of.
Management.
Yeah, I don't.
Is that a technical term?
I don't know if
Yes.
far ahead of this conversation we want to get, since we have a meeting
Right.
tomorrow night.
Tomorrow.
I have to be at Putz tomorrow.
But yes, under those funding scenarios, there's somewhere between
Yeah.
$300,000 and $800,000, depending on if one of those scenarios becomes a reality.
And I guess,
So,
and this is just out of my penny pinching ways, but I would start it with the smallest operating and, you know, smallest footprint that way. And if there's a demand, build up to it rather than.
Oh, except, yeah.
I think
Most
we should also
definitely.
look at it as, it would become business in a sense.
Sure.
And that we should always look at it as any city revenue that comes into it is bonus.
Mm.
At it as a zero gain situation, nonprofit, not meant for profit, it is meant to operate.
Right. To stay.
I want-
It has to pay for itself.
I want to second what you're saying, because I don't think the city should be building a business.
Building a business.
Well, nonprofit is nonprofit. I mean, it should be sustainable. It should be, you know, that's how,
But I mean, like,
yeah.
But we also know that most nonprofits aren't sustainable, and so getting whatever resources we can down the road, it just should not be expected.
If our mission is strong, and if our mission is to focus on ecology and the whole indigenous story, I think the money is going to come. I feel like ecology right now is on everybody's mind, and I'm reading daily indigenous stories coming out, and I feel like this is the time when we're going to get money. We're going to get money from the Interior Secretary. We're going to get money. I mean, yes, we will. The tribal.
I wish that were the
No,
case.
it's true. It's true. I know it is. Believe me.
Manifest it,
But,
Betty.
you know, I really believe that if we have a really strong mission, we can talk to people and get the money we need, and
Should we
we can
ask
charge
Dick
people.
can Dick speak to that at all?
Yeah.
I don't know, I didn't want Dick to weigh in on,
On getting money,
Yeah.
just on
Yeah.
where we're at right now in this whole conversation.
I really can't hear you.
Actually, we're veering off course a little bit, talking about funding and management, because I would really like us to really determine realistic use first, and that will inform the next conversation we have.
Back to use. I will
Bring it
strongly stump for regular open gyms in the wintertime or whenever needed, at no cost.
What are you saying in the winter?
Regular open gyms for basketball or other kinds of just ways for people to stay active. When there's a little, then that's one of those things we don't have. There's no duplicate around town for it.
Let me just attach to that, the fact, where what I'm hearing is kind of a little conflict. we're running into static display, heritage culture type stuff and functional use events. Both of those take spaces, and that is a huge scheduling issue when you've got some part of the facility being used for an event at some point, but it's also a static display. Wait a minute, how does that work? Now, I know it works because I've been in cultural centers where I've done living history in the center itself. So it can be done. I understand that, but it's also, it's not basketball. So we've got to be real careful about how we're.
Well, I don't think you end up being in the lobby, not in the gym.
Right, it's where it happens. But when it gets to actually sitting down and managing, the schedule is going to be the Bronco to ride here. It's a tough one. Because you're going to black out certain chunks every week. You know, maybe summer will be different than winter. Who knows? We haven't figured that out yet. But those are going to be set schedules. And so it's going to be really hard then to start working around somebody who wants to come in and do a heritage cultural presentation from the Navajo tribe because they want to do a cultural share.
I would, maybe there's a scheduling hierarchy.
Yeah.
Right.
And maybe any tribal event or, should take precedence and work that down.
Arts, culture, ecology.
Yeah. And the other thing is, what I was thinking is, you could also do mobile displays. Primarily, since the design of the facility does not give you a whole lot of space for permanent wall display. So a mobile display is probably going to be the most likely thing. So in that sense, one of the classrooms could become maybe a static display during the summer, if that's what we wanted. But when you want to have an event, you just roll it all into another room and use that room for.
I would, from what we looked at, I was under the impression that the lobby would
That's what I'm envisioning too.
Yeah.
That would be the place where display.
And it also seemed like there's lobby, then there's very flexible space, and then there's 2 classrooms that can become 1. I think that very flexible space maybe becomes more of an exhibit. I mean, how many times are we really going to need 3 small?
I'm
When we're not utilizing what we have.
Save it. Dick, I'm going to weigh in.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that I always saw the lobby and the first 2 classrooms, either the first classroom by itself or opening the wall to the middle classroom as being possible exhibit spaces. And I did, Sam, I agree. I see some mobile cases possibly being used that can be moved from one lobby to another, to a classroom. And for the gym to be used for large presentations that might be like a Navajo group that can be brought to town for a dance or a theatrical sort of a presentation. But that I didn't see the gym being used for like museum exhibit items. That's the only comment I wanted to make.
Did you have something
I agree.
that you wanted to run with there?
I agree. I don't think there's a
mentioned the-
conflict. I think there's a good synergy there with being able to do, with being able to be having some flexible items, having the lobby dedicated to the core story, and then the gym is used for large gatherings. So we're not taking space in the gym to say this is a one and done installation. Keep it as a flex space.
And I see less physical exhibits. At least I haven't heard of a lot of physical exhibits that we're going to have, though I would love to hear from Dick about what some options might be. But I would like to be able to go in and have interactive things where you can press a button and there's a screen and it gives you a 3-minute story of the Nakus people and that historic site. You can press the button for, it's, I guess, like a jukebox. You can press a button and it gives you the geologic history and talks about Haystack Rock. You can press a button and learn about rainforests and the Lewis and Clark story, tide pools, bird life. Again, you know, a 3-minute video followed up by, if you want to learn more, or if you want to take care of these things, stewardship messaging, safety messaging. I see it more being that than a whole lot of big cases. But
I think some of the artwork that the architects have exhibited on some of the walls, the options that would be available for consideration, you know, different kinds of processes that represent images of items. And I think for tribal families, Cannon Beach families, to have the opportunity to have some cases, I think is a really good idea, and to have them flexible, like Sam, I think, like what you were referring to, mobile, different, well, you know, to consult with museums on just the options for being flexible, because there's Cannon Beach families that have stories to tell through items that have been handed down. And so do we as tribal families. So I think to have that option and to set up there's been some small discussion about setting up a cooperative agreement with the Cannon Beach History Center, with the tribe and tribal exhibits there, as well as maybe smaller exhibit at the Naku Center. You know, maybe have some encourage some traffic between the two spots in coordination and cooperation with each other in telling stories. So I think all of those are possible, and I think it would be great to involve the History Center and go back and forth, encourage people.
I think I could elaborate a little bit on what Dick's saying. The design, the way it's designed, literally there is no gallery space. There is no walls to use as a gallery for presentations. There's a few spots here and there. So it all has to be mobile. If you're going to do any sort of displays, they have to be mobile. They have to be containers and easels. It's just the way it's been put together.
I made the comment about we've got the lobby and essentially 3 classroom spaces.
You can't display on a flexible door. You can't display on a window wall. Both north and
No, but that first space seems like it could accommodate that kind of stuff. And I just question for myself, how many times are we going to need 3 classrooms?
Totally. As someone who runs classes in town, I think the demand for classes has been overstated highly along this. It's hard to get people out. God bless, they love the soap making class, but like, you know, and as we go forward, it is, you know, like it's a self-taught YouTube learning generation that's coming along behind us. Like they don't, like the younger folks are not as interested in going out and sitting in classrooms. You know, I could probably figure it out in 15 minutes with YouTube.
Well,
I'm not, and I support, like, I'm out here trying to get people together because it's important to be together and do it. I'm just, the reality is that it's like 3 concurrent classes, like maybe during summer art camp for the CBA, 1 week of the year, do they need that? Is that kind of space?
I think because this space will be, a heritage center where we are, people from all over are going to come and learn. And if it's a hands-on learning, I mean, in Hawaii, when I was just doing a program out of my house, it very quickly filled up. And then I had to do classes in the morning and the afternoon. And I had people from all over the islands coming because at least in Hawaii, they were very interested in hands-on learning. And if you offer this anyway, so I have a different view of it. And I think if we advertise it, people will come that are interested in learning about the things that we are going to offer. I don't think we're going to have trouble filling the space. And, like how many people go to HRAP, learning about the tide pools and stuff. Well, that could be also taught in a dry space. And I know the HRAP people, Kelly was talking about doing murals that would explain things kind of like we've been talking about today. So I don't know. I just think that.
Are you making a case for 3 classrooms?
Well, I'm just saying if we had at least 1 or 2 we had 1 classroom dedicated to HRAP and ECFR, I think we could fill it up. And what if we can't? Okay, then we change the model but I think we have to make a jump into that direction, see what happens.
Maybe this isn't the time or place, but I don't remember us having a discussion about having a relationship with Clatsop Community College. Has that come up in anybody's conversations?
There was talk of making sure that every educational institution in the region was available. Everybody had this available for them. And that region spread all the way back to PSU so that we could come up to that level again. So it was implied, I think, that as an educational facility.
That's a great idea.
Just taking a couple steps back to Gary's description of the historical area. I think somebody might want to contract somebody from the History Center, because if I was the director of the History Center right now and I heard you guys this was going to happen, and I would be so terrified that my lunch was going to be eaten by a big multi-million-dollar project that is able to completely outstrip what we're able to provide.
Yeah, and I don't see that at all. I see, I could see that it might be a concern, but I see that maybe one of those buttons gives you a 3-minute history of Cannon Beach and then tells you for more, we have a whole center devoted just to that. So I don't think this is replacing the History Center.
No, I don't see it as, that certainly wasn't the intention of my comment. We have people within the tribal families have met with the History Center to help set up an exhibit there and a representation of a longhouse. But in my head, I do not see why there could not be something that would link tourists or visitors to go over to the History Center, or people visiting the History Center to go over to Nakoos. There has been no discussion about having a mini exhibit, but just sharing. And as a tribal person, family who has items, I see that as working together from my standpoint or our standpoint.
I think also we need to kind of imagine a summer schedule where for 2 weeks, the district center is doing a presentation with a mobile exhibit for something specific, the Oswald West House or something. And they're doing that for 2 weeks. And then that moves out. 2 weeks later, we come in with a logging history from Camp 18. And then 2 weeks after that, we have Lewis and Clark. That's why I'm really stressing the mobility of this. We have spaces, leave them spaces, don't define them.
I'm with you on that.
Use them as spaces. One day they could be a class when somebody says, hey, I'd like to teach something. Next day, it can be presentation that they're going in and out of. Yes, those would probably have to be staffed.
You're arguing a little bit against there's no gallery space. But
I'm still doing mobile. It has to be a mobile presentation. I'm just saying the walls don't give you any gallery space. The walls in themselves, other than the west classroom, the farthest one to the west does as a single classroom. Not a good gallery space, but it works. But also, I've always thought of that classroom as being the dirty room. Something where painting classes could be done and carving could be done and gardening could be done without having to worry about cleaning it up every time. That's how I remember college. So that's the way I've always envisioned that one room, but that's just me. Okay, I guess that's.
okay, so we're about an hour and a half into this. And I feel like we're starting to talk about some of the details and some of the challenges, but I feel like generally we have a pretty close agreement. And I don't know if I haven't necessarily thought out the process for how we agree on a recommendation to make, but it feels like one of them, I was just making a few notes as we were talking, but I wrote, as a truly historic cultural site and its location adjacent to estuary, wetlands, and beach, and recognizing the limited parking, the facility best use primary use, hopefully daily, is as a cultural and ecology center to provide an additional attraction to visitors parked downtown to learn the story of this site and the ecology of the surrounding area as kind of a baseline. Am I close on that, even though it's rough editing so far?
It sounds like a nice general description. It doesn't help define it.
Well, it's a good start.
I don't think we want to define it too far
I
here.
feel like we don't have a consensus on commercial use and weddings.
Right.
That's where we need to,
Commercial.
And
commercial use and weddings.
And that's what I was going to suggest that we do. We kind of take Deb's initial start here and maybe have some personal assignments that we go after more information so that we can get good advice from some of these likewise centers about what percentages of commercial private events do they do and how has that evolved? And do they like their model? Is it working? Is it not working?
But
Did they used to do it and now they don't do it anymore because they thought it was terrible? I mean, I would like to just hear some other fact gathering from some other centers.
I would like to hear Dick's opinion on the commercialization of the space.
Can I interject something?
Let's
Hold on, let's-
I'm with you.
hold on, Deb.
there's a forum that came from them about other cultural centers.
Mhm.
I'd like him to answer how they're doing it.
I would too. Well, I would like Dick to,
Yeah, Dick to answer.
did you get the question, Dick?
So he doesn't have this and he
Yeah,
gave it to
that-
the architect. So I don't know how you.
I'm not sure I necessarily agree with Andrew's premise about commercial activities, but
Well, I haven't weighed in on it one way or the other.
I thought that's the question you posed to
I
us.
just wanted to know how Dick would feel about that sort of thing.
About having
But you,
events.
the commercialization of the space.
Yeah, I
Well, I
don't
think,
think it's that way, but
Yeah, I don't think that's fair to say it that way.
How would you say it?
I would say that there is multi-use, just as Andrew's suggesting, doing recreational activities in the gym is neither a cultural nor ecological pursuit, but it's a great use of that space if it's not, to enhance community activity. So I think there's a broad possibility of doing many things. And again, percentages of what things we do at what time, we will determine. And it might be an ongoing model. We might start with one model and it will evolve into another model. But I think getting some advice from other centers about how they are structured and the viability.
but
I
wouldn't
don't
mind-
think there are many centers that I can think of that are comparable in purpose or this is a cultural heritage environmental center. And I don't know if there's the same kind of an animal out there that we could ask the questions to.
Sure.
But as far as using it for, the hard fact is that money is important. Money is something that always gets in the way. And if the question is whether we should use it to have somebody do a birthday party, well, we always, if we go to the swimming pool and want to have a party, we have to pay for it. So I don't, I'm feeling like as long as it wasn't used for a big commercial moneymaker, like to hire to rent it out for some band. I don't know. I don't know what the question really is.
I would love it if you could weigh in on where you would draw the line on outside events. And we like to jump to weddings as one of them, but if Nike wanted to come in because it's such a cool space and do an after hours event.
Or a photo shoot, or like that's what I mean, like the commercialization of the space, like it's a sacred space. So what becomes
But
obscene?
That is so true. It has been sacred. It was a village. And we've had to compromise time and time and time again. And I think right now it's just really sad how it lacks its sacredness in so many ways. we honor the people that have lived and died there. We honor everything that's come after. And I think it's with this taste of the KKK coming in. That's, that's where, or not the KKK, who was it that was gonna, not neo-Nazis.
I think we all draw the line there.
It's got if it's in good taste, I think we would agree to honor all of the history, but that we really have to have some standard that we all agree to, that we try to enforce. That's.
I think Dick has if I may, Dick, you've said it without saying it. Honoring, if you rent the space for a commercial use, our job is to make sure that it honors the site. So how we make our rules and regulations of using the space must have some interaction with what the space is. So if somebody wants to have a ceremony of some kind, I'm not going to define the ceremony because it's a group of people having a party of some kind. As long as it's within the lobby and we have the art that's in there, or we have the displays that are in there, and just take a moment to honor why this piece of property is so special. That's all we ask.
And I think that we can get some really great examples of the Burke Museum in Seattle, the Forestry Center in Portland, the North Center. They were all built for those same mission statements. They were to be a specific enhancement of the community for a specific purpose. And so they define the use of the space. We can get away from the super negative. How about if somebody wants to bring in a carnival ride and set it up in the park there? Right? No, because that would really disrupt the whole honoring of the garden space. No, that's not an appropriate use for the outdoor space. So those are not difficult to come up with those guidelines. I think that we can do that. I think we can do that, but I think that's the second step. I think the primary is to get some great examples of centers that we see, that we say that works. What they're doing works, and then start modeling our mission, our construction of our model after that.
I believe Seaside had an issue with the gun show at the convention center. And that kind of comes back to your point. That's less, I was going to say less political, but it's probably not less political, but it's one of those that.
It's one of those subjects that they can handle by their rules. One thing I'd just like to, one little thing that I've heard a couple times, I'm not just curious. One of the phrases that irritates me a lot, it's used not just for this event, but I've heard it a lot, is we don't want to reinvent the wheel. The problem to me, whenever we go out and search and look for other examples, and Deb's done a great job, but remember, these are examples of how somebody else has done it for their situation. Our situation is different. Use the example to learn from, to create ours. We don't want to plug in some.
Deb, are any of these examples city owned? Municipally owned?
There's a whole range of ones. Newburgh is, I think, and yeah, I mean, there's a lot of them on here. There's so many on here, like that. There are other Indians cultural centers in here. High Desert Museum. I don't know.
But
We would need to
find
out how they're all. Let me find that. The Squaxin Dick Island Museum, the Hubbub Cultural Center. Some of those are, the Macaw Cultural Center, Lincoln City Cultural Center.
What
it's-
about them?
Yeah.
Or they, something we want to do, the Columbia
That wasn't the question.
Discovery Center Museum. I just laid out a bunch of them.
Maybe.
No, you're right, Sam. You got to create your own reality. I'm just saying, like with the Nordic Center, how do they pay for themselves? I
Right.
think that's important to ask.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's another meeting.
Right.
I made some notes on secondary uses of the facility, and just tell me if you agree, disagree, think we're close, have a change to it. I'm now calling it the center. The center will provide classroom space for educational programs, presentations, and meetings, emphasizing but not limited to arts, culture, history, and ecology.
Sounds good.
After hours or special occasions, potentially, the gymnasium, facility lobby and classrooms may be used for events with an emphasis on community events and festivals, emphasizing but not limited to arts, culture, history, and ecology. I made the note that a transportation plan would be required for those. Thoughts?
So the organizer of the event would have to answer that, have to say, this is how the people are going to get.
And maybe the answer to that question is, well, it's November 30th.
Right.
Parking is not a problem, but yes.
Yeah.
Well, and all dependent on size, you know, if it's just a
Right.
10-person class, it's not like it doesn't need a transportation plan.
This one is very similar to that one. After hours or special occasions, the gymnasium, facility, lobby, and classrooms may also host private events, including organizational retreats and meetings. And I put the word receptions in here. A transportation plan would also be required.
Wow. It's interesting to me that a lot of condominiums in Seattle, Portland, other places now do not require parking because they expect people to figure it out. And to me, that's egregious, but that's the wave of the future is our cars are
No.
hopefully.
Maybe so. Also don't want to overburden the neighborhoods or have an event when it's so challenging to park.
That's a very different question, though. I mean, it's also about like, and I don't even want to go down the rabbit hole, but like housing is needed. And if they have to waive parking spaces to get there, sometimes cities are doing that. But we don't even need to.
I've got one more or less. The center's gymnasium will be open for recreation, including pickleball and basketball during the regular hours of the center.
I don't think you need to say including, just recreational use.
Yeah. And regular hours at the center, I mean,
Yeah, we don't know that.
we don't know. And I would say, like, you know, I think for a basketball or something like that, that's going to be an after 5 o'clock, after people get off work, after kids get home from school. It's not going to be a 9 to 5. Those are usually evenings.
That would be the challenge. I see us funding a center, you know, realistically during the day, but having a person there like any time of day.
Yeah, I'm not stumping for a 9 to 5 open. I'm like, I think that, you know, on an as needed basis, and that's where somebody, whoever it is, comes and unlocks it for the 2 hours in the evening for the gym and oversees it, and locks it up. Not a.
Sunset Parks is doing that right now with the gym at the former Broadway Middle School. You know, that's open for recreation in the evenings. And it's working.
Okay, I'll make an edit here to make it much more generic.
Yeah, back in 2010, 12, somewhere back there, when we were starting to talking about this facility, I really challenged myself to sit down and write 50 things that we could do in the room.
Yeah, remember that.
I came up with 75 in one sitting. So actually defining things that you can do, there's bajillions of things that you can do in there. The trick is, do we have the spaces that are flexible enough for all those things? Do we need that? I think we do. Ish. And that's me because I don't like the layout. But I think ish in the fact that, yes, we can do it. We can make it work. Perfectly fine. It works. So that sense, that's all we need to do. In this case, what Gary has just lined out is there's rooms. You don't even have to call them classrooms. You can call them rooms. There's spaces that we can use. And there's a gymnasium that we can use. And there's an event space that we can use. And they all got the services that are needed, the restrooms and the kitchen. Storage. Free services. So
And technology.
when we get into the management of it, then we're starting to ask the questions of the timing.
Yeah.
And what is used when. That gets a little more complex. But, and that also is the experience that we're going to have while we use it. We're going to start learning that, okay, it's not working to doing these things as much. Or maybe the gym schedule needs to be shifted to a different time of day, or things like that. So.
Does everyone feel like they've had their say on use? Dick, do you have anything? Okay. Because the next thing on the agenda is next steps. And I guess for what we've done here tonight, would you like me to draft up the things that I just read and bring them back to you for our next meeting for official approval as?
Well, Tessa, are you taking
I am taking minutes.
minutes? Okay.
It would probably also be a good idea for you to bring like a summarized draft, because I kind of just listed out everyone's priority.
And I was kind of bumbling along as I read those things. So
I'll-
rough edits.
So
Okay. And then our next step would then be to set the next meeting and maybe even a meeting after that, if necessary. If we're as good as we were here tonight, maybe we can wrap this up and I realize the management story is a bigger discussion. But I also hope we don't try to get too granular in it.
Yeah.
Is an advisory committee.
A suggestion. Can we do this every Monday? Just boom, 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 boom.
I can't do, it would have to be a different day.
I can't do it every Monday, but
Have to look at my calendar.
But 5:15 for Sam.
Thank you. Yes, that helps.
Uh,
I'm the only one here that actually works.
No,
Hey. And my daughter's wedding's next week, so.
oh, wow. Sure, if you're an expert in that, right?
so
Supposedly.
Monday's just bad for you.
Well, no, the fourth Monday, I have another board meeting.
I know,
19th.
less ideal for me.
Like, yeah. The 26th, I can do it. The 3rd, I can do it. The 10th.
You're not good on these things.
Right.
What if the Thursdays were better for me? What was,
I'm completely.
We have to be,
open after next.
we have to think about.
After the wedding's on the 24th, meetings here full time, and I'm completely.
It's usually pretty. I'm just gonna start going down the line of dates, the line of days, the week of the
the final Thursday? How
Okay,
So the 19th did not work.
about the 22nd?
there's a planning.
That's planning. Is the 29th?
29th is open.
how about the 21st?
20th or 21st?
I work on Wednesdays every Wednesday.
Oh, okay.
20th,
20th is open.
20th.
20th is good.
As long as we had it a little later than 5:15, because farmer's market.
I would,
Take down.
Gary, I'd have to Zoom on that. I'd have to be on Zoom. I couldn't be here. But I could attend.
Are you okay with that?
I can make it work, but I can't be here. I can't be in Cannon Beach.
5:30 on the 20th.
Okay.
That's next week?
Yes.
Oh, if only everything could move like this.
Jeez.
We want to keep this going.
And I find that I do much better if I'm in person. I don't do well on Zoom, I find out.
It is tough, yeah.
I thought you did pretty well, Dick. I don't know.
I thought,
I appreciated you being there.
Yeah.
The 20th.
Yeah, it was a challenge unless everybody's on Zoom. And it's okay. Topic?
now, is our notice time fine with that? Do we need to be concerned about that?
We'll need to post it tomorrow, but that should be fine.
Okay.
We're discussing management at that meeting.
Do we want to schedule a final meeting or see how we do next time and then look at our schedules?
Yeah.
Okay,
What was the verdict?
There's,
Tuesday, the 20th, 5:30.
So can I ask about the topic of just management, is what we're talking about?
Mhm.
Okay.
And then if anyone does any research on other organizations, could have a little report on that.
Would you like to research all that?
I'm going to do some. I'm not willing to do all of it. I think Deb gave us a, really nice list to start with, but I just wanted to get a few more analysis points in there. Particularly if people started out one way and then pivoted and said, we hated this, this didn't work. I just would like to hear some more opinions about people already working with these centers.
And what their hiccups were.
And what the hiccups were and how they grew. Because obviously the Nordic centers are hardcore case here and they've got 11 employees. Couple full-time, but a lot part-time. Again, maybe addressing the evening,
well, I mean, the Nordic Center is right in Portland, right? So I mean, it's a very different.
It is.
Serving a very different market in a different market,
But everybody has their own, just like we will have our own mission statement and purpose, they do too. But it doesn't mean that, just the reality of, is it attractive? Is it in full use? What's the percentage of the use of the space? I think that tells you about the success.
Do they have parking?
Right,
I think also it'd be really interesting if they have seasonal.
right, exactly.
I know, I was involved in a living history event at what's it called? One of the Dalles Welcoming Center. The Fairfield Heritage, Trails Heritage.
Yeah.
We did the first living history that they ever did. And they were really nervous. They didn't want to know what, they didn't know. They had one a week after. And just every week after, because they thought it was the best thing ever.
when you talk, I'll just save it for next time, but just real quick, when we talk about seasonality, at the Arts Colony, we generally move outside for summer. We focus on outdoor events because it's really hard to get people to come in. Either their residents anyway are too busy or they'd rather be out where we should all be right now.
Yeah, you have the daylight issue.
So, so that's my seasonality anecdote.
That's at 5 o'clock, it's dark out.
Hey Deb, if you get all inspired and do a whole bunch of research, could you give us some public comment in advance of the meeting that we could?
Right.
I mean, I did work with Dustin, the architect, quite a bit. He's the one that gave me Dick's paper on these other places. But Dick, I'd like to get this to him so he can tell us about those and which ones we should look at. So let's see. I put out a big menu here. Okay, I put out a large menu. So
As much as you could identify the ones that are most applicable and do some homework and tell us what you think.
What's the
Chehalem Center, yeah.
Good place to go. I could work with Terry. We could call him because Newburgh is. I don't know what their population is, but the other thing too. The one thing I wanted to say was the Audubon has hired a person down here. I don't know if you know that. She lives in the North Coast Rocky Habitat's growing, and that's going to be put in with HRAP and so forth. there's a whole group of people we just organized with all these people. And so that's gonna be a big part with Audubon here all the time, educating about burping and birding groups and so forth. So that's another possibility that is gonna grow in a big way because of the North Coast Rocky Habitat designations. A lot of people organizing. And also,
Okay.
the History Museum, I just did an article on the Stephanie Inn, and they have the History Museum people there every week to talk to their guests. I think it is really important to sell the hotels on how this is going to benefit them. We want them on board, and we want them to come to bring their guests and have that be important, really important. Anyway, so yeah.
Okay, so
That's it.
on the agenda, we have good of the order. Is there anything else that anyone would like to mention at this point?
I want to mention one, sort of related, but there was a lot of discussion about parking. I don't know if anybody heard a couple of weeks ago on KMUN, the half-hour report about from a guy who's written a book about urban parking. Fascinating. And it leads to the fact that the worst thing you can do, this is very generalized, but the worst thing you can do when you have a parking issue is add parking.
Right.
Yeah, is that the paved paradise
Something
thing?
like that. Fascinating stuff. I question some of it, but I still, it is the new thinking now in the industry.
Mhm.
I was remembering the guy who came. We had that big study. It was the last time I had a full pack room. Well, not the last time, but
No, I remember.
a major pack, and that poor guy was great.
Yeah, little young guy.
Trying to put together a nice little report on parking, what could happen. And he was getting food but anyhow, the whole shift that has happened, and I bet if he came today, he would have a totally different presentation. So
I would hope so.
parking is its own worst enemy.
Yeah.
So,
I've read several articles the last 6 months in big cities where they're tearing down their parking structures to make room for more reasonably priced housing. We don't have that opportunity, but yeah.
But they're also doing exactly what we're saying is they're trying to draw from the community's resources rather than bringing them into this one spot. And
Yeah.
setting it up.
Right, yeah.
So I think if we had more for the goal of overnight stays rather than the 50-mile visit, I think that's our goal. And I think at that point, the hoteliers, especially the big ones, they're the ones that are concerned. They'll kick in. They'll finally realize, well, this is probably a good idea. I think all of the small hotels and the short-term rentals love this idea.
So I think our lodging community doesn't have the vision for this. But this is the way destination management is going in the tourism and hospitality business now. It's not about spending money on marketing. It's about stewardship and preserving what we have.
Taking care of your product.
Yep.
Well,
And that's why I think, or accommodating tourist activities. So I hope that we can demonstrate that to lodging.
Enhancement.
in apropos of nothing, as far as taking care of our product, maybe we could wrap up the sandcastle contest. Anyway,
It's hard.
What's the topic for the next meeting?
okay.
Management.
Management. Yep.
There's a lot of good of the orders there.
If there's
We're
nothing
in
else,
order.
we will call this adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.